Thank you, Senator Bates. Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Bates actually asked part of the question that I was going to ask. I was impressed by several of the presentations that we have had concerning this project, and in one of them, we were described the 4 facilities that are already within your company, and the point that I recall had to do with the Canadian facility, that there was great capacity left in that facility that could be used for Massachusetts and Rhode Island to bring down the prices, that somehow that was underutilized. Is that not the case?
We could get you the exact data, but based on the daily gas flows coming from Canada into New England, there's no evidence that they've been holding back any capacity. There are 2 ways of thinking about capacity. There's how much the facility can produce if there's no limitations, i.e. if it's gasifying the gas. But remember, they're connected by a 600-mile pipeline. If there's only so much room in the pipeline, it doesn't matter how much they send out of the terminal, it can only take what the pipeline will deliver. So when you've got a facility that's remote to the market, and 600 miles is remote, you can't, even though you can send out, let's say, 10 units, if the pipe can only take 2, you're only going to get 2 in Boston. And you've got some of that going on. The pipeline isn't big enough.
Have there, to your knowledge, been complaints by some of the other communities that are directly affected, whether it be recreational or views or any kind of problems with waves that are created? For instance, I know that across from East Boston is a small community called Winthrop that has had over the years some problems with the airport, and those have been worked out. Have there been any problems with Hess and the town of Winthrop, Massachusetts?
Well, we don't operate the LNG facility in Boston. That's operated by a different company entirely.
Have you heard of any problems?
I have never heard of any issues regarding noise. They're very quiet facilities. I've never heard any issue regarding waves. Boston Harbor has a lot of commercial shipping traffic in it, and these ships really aren't going fast enough to create any kind of wave disturbance. And Winthrop's really on the outside edge of Boston Harbor rather than the inside of Boston Harbor too. So they've definitely had noise problems with the airport, I know that. Yeah.
Well, there was, I mentioned at our last meeting, an editorial in the paper from abutters of the facility in Everett. And I had thought that that was one of your facilities, but
no,
it isn't.
No, it isn't.
But there are 4.
No, there are many more than that. There are terminals. There's the one in New Brunswick you mentioned. There's one offshore in Massachusetts.
I meant that are used by Massachusetts. Isn't that what?
Yes.
You had said, yeah.
Well, they'd serve all of New England, and as well as Canada. The one in New Brunswick serves Eastern Canada as well.
Eastern Canada. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I want to note that Senator Duvall has joined us from the great community of East Providence. And I'm now going to ask Senator Miller, you have some questions that you'd like to direct?
Thank you. You just discussed with Senator Pelag, I believe, that pricing at 10 times the regular rate. Was that in Boston, you said, at some point?
January, it was a day on January 2004.
Now, was that the price that a peak generator was willing to pay, or was that the general price throughout the market?
That was the price on the margin that was setting the price that generators were willing to pay on that day.
So it's, I'm not an expert in the field, but I got to know a little bit of this through my involvement with renewable energy standards and net metering. And there's a serious difference, and I'm not sure the public understands, between what an electric generator is willing to pay for his fuel and what he is able to sell to a generator, and it's usually an independent generator, is able to sell his power to National Grid, say, and that price of power at a peak generation point, which would be a high demand point, such as a very hot day or a very cold day, is sometimes 10 times what they would pay other than a peak. So I think it's important for the general public to understand that we don't have a price that is 10 times what, on a regular basis, that a household does not pay 10 times. That is a different fuel price than what happens maybe out of 10 days out of the year, when there's a peak demand generation. And
Right.
it's a very, very different market.
Well,
So I just think that needs some clarification.
let me try to clarify that aspect, because it wasn't meant to try and illustrate about the electric prices, although electric prices during that time period reached record highs in New England as well.
Yeah.
The way I understand the power pool operates is all generators, and they're all now independent, so they're not part of the utility system anymore, bid into the power pool.
Right.
And the last unit, the highest price unit that's dispatched in the power pool, sets the price for everything else in the pool. And that's the price that ultimately is paid.
The occurrence of anybody getting to that highest price occurs maybe 20 days a year.
When you get
if
to
we're
those very
lucky.
extreme prices, that's correct.
Right, and so I just think it's an important point of clarification when we talk about this. When we talk about pricing, can you talk a little bit about the difference of the price of LNG in the market versus the conventional gas that's in the pipeline?
It's the same price.
It's the same price. You're willing to sell your gas at the same price that the gas that comes into the
If
market?
we don't sell our methane molecules at the same price that somebody in Texas sells them at, nobody will buy them.
Okay.
It's a very, very wide open, very liquid market.
One of the proponents of the project who testified previously, I think he was a boat captain for a tugboat that came from Portsmouth, I believe.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Said his understanding was that the Gloucester plant was used by 2 ships over the course of the last year because of the low price of natural gas.
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert in tugboats, and I don't think that Don Church was an expert in gas pricing, but and I don't think he'd claim to be. What I do know is that prior to December this year, that facility received 1 shipment. Now, when you look at the price data in there, you'll notice that last year we had record high prices, or not record high, but we had prices substantially higher than we're seeing this year. Yet that facility didn't operate. Their business model is very different than ours. Now, they have been operating since mid-December, but their business model, they will describe to you as an opportunistic trading model.
Which means they are looking more towards selling towards peak price rather than the conventional price?
If they can figure it out, or if there's somebody somewhere on the other side of the world prepared to pay a higher price, they'll go there.
So, do you currently have any contracts with, say, Brayton Point or National Grid that will pay the going price for your natural gas rather than a higher or lower price?
No, we don't. I mean, obviously, until we're permitted, and we've got some ways to go on that, we wouldn't be able to enter in any contracts with anybody. It would be nobody's. We can't demonstrate we're commercially ready to go. But when we do, I would expect we would enter into the kinds of gas contracts with utilities, power generators, industrial users that any other gas supplier in this region